In keeping with the idea of your sound sort of being your voice on your instrument, we thought it would be useful to showcase a few sort of important, highly coveted snare drums that people know the names of but maybe have never seen or heard in person, which over the last few decades have become mainstays in recording studios and also on stage. And we're starting today with the Ludwig Black Beauty. Here we have a 90s 6.5 by 14 Ludwig Black Beauty snare drum. It was generously loaned to me by a friend named Kevin Salem. He's a record producer. And it actually belongs to Abe Laboriel Jr. It's been living in Kevin's garage for a long time. This is one of the first drums that I was aware of as being particularly special and particularly well known. This instrument is kind of in line with the superphonic style snare drum. It is 10 lugs. It is a center beaded shell with rollover bearing edges. Unlike a superphonic, which is aluminum and chrome plated, this is brass and nickel plated, which is why you get that black color. This drum also has die-cast hoops on it right now, and the standard P85 and butt plate. As you can see, there are a lot of similarities between the Black Beauty and this standard superphonic. The imperial lugs, 10 lugs per side, same mechanism, and it's a little bit deceptive because they are actually very different instruments in sound, in weight, and just in the general behavior, the way they feel when you hit them. There are lots of drums on the market right now that look like a Black Beauty. They have the same kind of shell appearance, and they are brass. What makes this one particularly special is the gauge of the shell is a little bit thicker, and it is seamless, meaning it is not bent and welded into a circle. It is actually drawn out from a flat sheet and then cut to have a completely seamless shell, which promotes resonance and promotes a wider tuning range. These drums are often thought of as a rock snare drum, but they're extremely versatile. They're very loud. They're also very sensitive. They're not particularly heavy to carry around as some metal drums can be. And they sound good in an unbelievable variety of tunings, from very, very low to very, very high. Ludwig's first nickel over brass snares appeared in the very early 20th century, and a lot of them were two-piece shells that were welded on either side, and also were much heavier gauge. The Black Beauty, as we know it, was introduced in the 1970s for a few years, ceased production, and then was brought back into production in the 90s, which is when this drum is from. The thing that really makes the Black Beauty special is the brass shell rather than aluminum, which you'd find in a superphonic or a acrolite, and also the fact that the gauge of the shell is thicker than those. This results in a drum with more sustain and more resonance and just a much larger sound. The note is bigger, the sustain is longer, and the volume ceiling of this drum is much higher than a superphonic or an acrolite. Another aspect of the thicker shell is the ability to tune the drum very high without choking, and also to tension the snare wires tighter than you would think would be okay and still not have it choke the drum out because the shell is so resonant. The versatility of this drum really comes into play in a recording studio because you can go for tunings that would be much lower and less cutting than you would use in a live situation, especially if it's a rock situation. And it will still give you a beautiful tone and not get flabby or start to have strange overtones. And then you could turn right around, crank it up, take it out to a gig, and it'll get as loud as you want to get. You hit it as hard as you want, and it'll sound fantastic all the way to the top. It's important to note that this doesn't make this a better instrument. It's just a different instrument, and one will not replace the other. This happens to be more expensive because of what it's made of, and also, to a certain degree, the famous name. But they're all great instruments. This one, if you're in a situation where you need a lot of volume and a really, really big sound, it would be my choice over one of those other ones. In addition to tuning versatility, I've also never found a head that doesn't work on these, and I've never found a set of snare wires that doesn't work on these. They will respond with anything from very narrow wires to very wide 42-strand wires. Just to give you a quick demonstration of the versatility of this drum, we're going to do 3 short demos right now of a low tuning, a medium tuning, and a high tuning. Right now, this drum is outfitted with an Evans G12 batter head, which is a 12mm single-ply coated head, and a 3mm snare side. Starting with a super low tuning, it's very raspy and there's a lot of overtones. So I would probably put a little piece of cloth or a wallet on there, something like that. I like this sound because it sort of sounds like a snare drum that's been pitch shifted down, which happens a lot in pop music now when the drums are programmed. It gets you into that territory of sounding kind of crunchy and almost like it's not even an acoustic instrument, which is really fun. Now a little medium tuning, something that would work for a rock situation or a pop situation, just kind of a middle of the road sort of thing. Now we're super duper high, almost in maybe like a classical kind of situation. This is with snares off. Super high, but there's still some tone in there. This goes to show you too that the argument about deep snares versus shallow snares, when you're talking about somewhere between 5 and 6.5 inches deep, is a little bit moot. A 6.5, a good one, will go ridiculously high, and a good 5-inch deep drum will also go low enough. Now, if you go online and you jump on Reverb or eBay and you go looking for one of these, you're going to quickly find out that the older they are, the more they cost. The original ones from the 70s, when they first reissued them, are startlingly expensive, in the thousands of dollars sometimes. If you find one from the 90s, less money. The ones they're currently making are in the hundreds of dollars. So not necessarily prohibitively expensive, but you can see that, just like anything else, vintage equals more expensive. But fundamentally, the construction is the same, the gauge of the shell is the same, and the coating and all of that. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tour of the Black Beauty and what it's capable of. And please remember to like the video, subscribe, send us a message, ask a question, anything you want, and thank you.